And I will actually start with a question from the audience because it's better than mine. Just the first one. What unique challenges do female founders face in securing investment?
I'm happy to take that. So what are the challenges females face? I suppose it's themselves. Females tend to be much more honest when it comes to investment pitches. They tend to, tell you the risks before they've told you the opportunities. The market size slides tend to be much more downplayed in a female pitch deck. And I suppose the challenges are they're up against a much more confident cohort. And I suppose the numbers speak for themselves. In Ireland, we noticed this, and in 2011, just 7% of startups were female founded. And we since sought to redress this and do a number of things. I don't want to spoil some of the panel discussions, but we did a number of things like targeted programs, early education, and changing the culture around, making women more front of stage, and this is an opportunity for them to be entrepreneurs. And we've since changed the stats in Ireland to being much higher, above 30% are now female founded coming out of Ireland.
We will get back to this.
And from our experience and also from my perspective, it's about, understanding sometimes of the problem or the issue they are tackling, because naturally, and the best founder you will hear it's when the founder is solving the problem that they have ourselves or themselves. And when they come to investors, and majority, like now 98% are men, they don't usually understand. Like we heard so many times that, for example, we had a founder from Norway, and she said it's all about fishing there, and then we have one, she had something like Vinted, so second-hand marketplace with clothes, and she got feedback from the committee, I buy one pair of jeans once per 2 years, so what I would need your solution. And the femtech is a separate category, right? Understand the female health. So, and that's why what we started, it's like to have more women among investors, because then we will, change the thinking and change the selections. If we don't change the selections, it will be, in the circle all the time. If we don't change the committee that is selecting the startups that they will be funded, we will not have more female founders.
Mm-hmm. Elisabeth?
I mean, working with a lot of female founders and hearing kind of their experience about fundraising, and as Zuzana is saying, a lot of especially in VC, but a lot of investors, they are still men, or they are men, and unconscious bias is unfortunately still a very big issue. So women will tell us that they sit in a conversation or a meeting with the investor, and if their male co-founder is there, they might get ignored. They might not get asked any technical questions, even when they are the chief technology officer of the company, for example. But also in terms of the types of questions they are asked when they are pitching, right? So one very clear example of this, there was research or like a study done a couple of years ago where they checked during pitch competitions what type of questions female founders get asked and the type of questions that male founders get asked. Mm-hmm. And it showed that women way more often get asked so-called preventative questions. So what are the risks that your company is facing? What are the hurdles? Whereas men tend to get asked way more promotive questions, like what's the opportunity here? If I invest in you, what do I get out of it? And lastly, women also unfortunately still have to face a lot of disrespectful or even discriminatory behavior, where they will get asked questions about their marital status or family planning. And it makes you wonder, how relevant is that when I'm pitching my company to you?
Mm-hmm. Just may add, like, for example, we invest into diverse founders, but like 60% of applicants are female founders that are coming to us. So we don't search for them, they come to us, and most of the accelerator, if they are not focusing on women, they are, they need to search them actively. So because they know that they will find that understanding.
Mm-hmm. Which is actually what I want to ask. Venture capital is definitely still a man's world. Women are massively underrepresented. Women-led startups account for about 10% of the startup ecosystem in EU, and they only receive less than 3% of all VC investments. That's crazy. Like, women are 50% of the society, and they only get 3% of all VC investments. Zuzana, how can investors actively work on bridging this gap?
So, from my perspective, it's really about searching, as it was saying, so for the solutions, for some platforms or programs where they can actively start and even learn, because what we heard meant like we are doing angel investing, so it's like the initial investment. And what we heard so much from our members that they don't feel secure there to even like ask questions. They need a secure environment that they can ask questions, when they can learn about the investing. But then there are many data that, like once they start, women invest, they are much more successful than male investors. But that's the other topic. But what I see, it's like a secure environment, like when you said that it's so much male dominated, like in Finland, I think that we have, that investors go for, discussion about investment into sauna. So imagine, that women be there, with the male discussing. It's not so comfortable, maybe, discussing the investment. And all this stuff, that even sometimes what we face in this ecosystem, we are mainly in CE region, is that, like they take us or consider us as a competition rather than something to cooperate with. Because they rather, and then create a cooperation with other like male-dominated VCs. So I would say, kind of programs where they can feel secure and learn, and really like the change. And it's a lot about the biases and perspective connected, also with the family. And so like if it's VC investment, and I think that you will be talking more about it, it's time consuming, but I would say it's manageable.
Mairéad, in Ireland, and you've already mentioned this, 13 years ago, female-led startups represented just 7% of all startups. And in just 12 years, what happened it has risen to 31%. I mean, that's amazing. It's a miracle, really. Congratulations. So tell us the secret recipe. Like, what did you do?
So I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of stakeholders, and I suppose that's the crux of it. Really, is a huge support from the ecosystem, both from private sector and public sector, and then I suppose it's targeted programs, and I'll come back to that. And it's early education. So I suppose pointing to what Elisabeth and Zuzana was saying, bringing more females into the fold at the investment decision-making stage and at the startup stage. So you have to start early in schools. So I suppose in Ireland, what we did in that regard is we partnered with IWish. It's a not-for-profit organisation whereby it gets involved in high school age students, and it tries to encourage access to STEM subjects, so science, engineering, maths. And I suppose the figures are there that the more people are engaged in STEM subjects, the more likely they'll engage in innovation, R&D, and likely go on to start companies. So I suppose we're starting really early with females who are 14, 15 years of age, and getting them thinking about their startups much early. So that's one initiative. Then the targeted programs have been really impactful, and I suppose Kristýna's mentioned there, like that's been going on now for the last kind of 13 years. I think actually Going for Growth is one of our targeted programs in Ireland, and that's actually in its 17th year this year. And it's a partnership, again, when I mentioned about partnering with public and private sector, it partners with KPMG, who's a big supporter of it. And it basically marries lead entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs across a load of sectors that might not have been venture backed, but they are given one-to-one mentoring sessions over a 6-month period. And that's been hugely insightful to kind of help give females the platform, and that extra platform that their male counterparts aren't getting, so they can kind of get on a level playing field. And then I suppose the newest program we've lined up, and I suppose it's going to that ecosystem. We have the Irish Venture Capital Association, which is the representative body for venture capital and private equity firms in Ireland, and that's a very cohesive network with public and private sectors. I'm not sure what the equivalent is here in Czech, but I suppose that's been hugely impactful. It rolled out a program 3 years ago called the Road to VC. And again, similar to the Going for Growth, but it's much more targeted at VC, and it links up on a one-to-one basis female startups from all, like from conception right to later stage VCs, startups, and they're linked with their VCs in the market. And it's kind of giving them the extra platform to create a relationship rather than just having that cold one-off pitch and then it's kind of see you later. So it's giving them that extra chance. So there's a number of things there that have been done over the years, but it's definitely all facilitated by bringing together a number of stakeholders, and it's not just one thing, and it's being patient with the process and the ecosystem.
But have you still battled with the gender bias that has been mentioned here before?
Yeah, so I suppose one other most recent thing done actually, and it goes to what Elisabeth was saying there about the decision making, and it definitely the preventative questions. I liked how you put that. Fearless Futures, it's a London-based consultancy firm. So at IVCA, I mentioned there the Venture Capital and Private Equity Association that represents all the members. It became compulsory for each member firm to nominate somebody to do a course with Fearless Futures, whereby it was targeting biased decision making. So again, that's just really tackling it head on to say, am I being biased here in the questions I'm asking these founders? So that's been hugely impactful and definitely something I recommend.
Zuzana, can you imagine that these things would be implemented here in Czech Republic?
I would love to imagine that, like what we are running, and it's connected with the education and the secure space. I was saying it's that we are running like angel course. It's called Hello Future Investor, and it's really like as I said, popular. And when what we heard, they are missing the courage, and it's also connected with biases that was saying, because usually when you discuss the male founders, you discuss equity, invest, and when we discuss female founders, we say words like empower. We need to empower them, we need to mentor them. But it's only the vocabulary, but it's also about the vocabulary, what they heard, because that is saying that you cannot become what you don't see. And if we don't have the role models of both sides, like investors and founders, we will not, grow this system that was growing in Ireland, which is really great.
Elisabeth, what's your thought on this?
I mean, I agree. It would be great to see similar policies implemented in other European countries, I think. I myself was not so aware of the situation in Ireland, to be fully honest, before we had a little chat to prepare for this panel. But I think it's very inspirational, and I think a lot of other countries can learn from that. The company I work for, we're based in Austria. We do work pan-European, but Austria too, it's still very conservative when it comes to these topics. Vienna is a little bit of a different case, I would say. We're also looking at public institutions, for example, that support startups. They definitely also include criteria to make selection processes more fair. So they also do look at what does the founding team look like, how many women are in leadership positions within a company, etc. And yeah, I would love to see something like that become mandatory for investors as well, because I think unfortunately it is necessary to kind of impose it.
Elisabeth, how have female founders networks and programs helped to navigate women and female founders in the challenges of fundraising?
So us as a company specifically, you mean? So we have several programs that we do. One is our investment readiness program.
Maybe if you can mention what's working best, what's
working
best practice.
So one thing that we do there is it's over the course of a couple of weeks, where it's both bringing them the knowledge, but it's also bringing that community. So also another struggle for women, unfortunately, is that it's just harder to build that community and to find like-minded people and to get that peer-to-peer support. I don't know if we have any founders in the room, but if there are, I'm sure you can acknowledge that being a founder can be a very lonely endeavor at times. And so it's great when you have support around you. And as Zuzana was also saying, creating these safe spaces where you can openly talk about doubts that you have, fears, unpleasant situations that you have experienced, I think that makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm. Do we have any female founders here in the audience? Please raise your hands. Does it feel alone to be a female founder sometimes? You can raise your hands again. Okay, thank you, everyone. Female investors are more likely to support female-led companies. That's a given, yes? And when we discuss the way forward to have more women in tech, which is like the main topic today, how to find, where are the women in tech, how to find them. I've read a really interesting and actually sad study in Harvard Business Review. And it says that if a female founder has only female investors in her first round of investment, then it is twice more probable to not get any funding in the second round. Why? Well, the study basically said that men tend to think that if a female founder got money from a female investor, then it was because of gender and not because of that the startup was worth it, which wasn't the case, but that's what they thought or tend to think. So, like, what do we do? How do we get outside of this like vicious circle?
I'm just going to go a bit of a segue there. So I suppose I would honestly feel in Ireland it's moved on a lot from that. But I completely agree, because I know Zuzana and Elisabeth are definitely saying that, and that's their experience now. And I know John Elkington this morning referenced Donald Trump. I didn't want to make it political, but I think everybody in the Republican race said, there was the Latin American voters said they would never vote for a woman. There's cultural biases in people that we have to accept. I would say, just taking if we want to kind of say, how do we move forward? In Ireland, I would say it is definitely moved on a lot from that. And why is that? It's because a lot of those things I mentioned there, and it's bringing people along over a period of time, accepting it's going to take a while, but it's bringing people along, but calling out these programs, these platforms, these, special dispensations we're kind of making, because we're acknowledging that women are much more honest in their pitches, women are much more downplaying their opportunity, they're much more kind of thinking of the risks, and they are the main caregivers in most situations as well. So there's all those things combined. But I would say in Ireland we have moved forward on that. And I suppose it's a kind of maybe something to look towards for the other countries represented on the stage. And I suppose kind of the few other bits and pieces, that I probably didn't mention was, to your point, Elisabeth, we have made it mandatory to report, all LP engagements require now in Ireland pretty much the gender reporting at decision making. And, if you want to be raising your next fund, you need to be showing gender representation. So that's very much live and well in Ireland, I would say. And you're not going to be raising repeat funds in Ireland if you're not gender diverse, and that's quite mandatory. So I would kind of take a more of a positive spin on the question you asked there, but the other ladies might.
Zuzana, do you want to?
Yeah, actually, I also would say that I think in our region there are also many initiatives that are tackling this issue. But the point is that the growth is still flat. And it's again connected, with the biases, what we think. And I actually remember also one study from Harvard is about Boston orchestras. I don't know if you heard about that. It's 13 years, last century, they have only 3% of male musicians. And they realize, okay, when there is a women coming to perform, if we should take her or not, we were maybe biased. So then they started with blind recruitment. So they didn't see who is performing. And currently there is about 35% women in orchestras. And actually companies are doing this blind recruitment. I think that you heard about that, that there are some even techs, apps that are, grading the CVs and so. So I don't know the solution for now, but it has to be something that actually will do this cause. I discussed before this panel discussion, investors are searching for this eye hockey, graphs, but in female founders, we still have this flat, so let's search for a solution for this. But I don't know, like and it's really connected with the communism in CA region, what we see, and with like this thinking that we had, but I don't have the current solution because I think there's many initiatives, but we are still searching one.
Mm-hmm. We do have a lot of questions from the audience. I like this one. Are there specific industries where female founders are excelling?
Yeah, actually, like I said, like femtech, because and also it's kind of like a paradox. You don't have male tech, male health tech, right? Mm-hmm. Because when you see the whole health industry, it's so oriented on men.
So it's all male tech.
Yeah, it's all male tech. That's true because only about the medication, how the women body and men body can have the same dose, right? It's not understandable. Mm-hmm. But also, don't be just with the femtech. I really think that with the FMCG, so with the goods, because the final buyers are usually women. That's the point. What we are saying, that if we have more female investors, we have more female founders, and more solutions oriented for women. Because I would say, like around from the last statistics, 90% of buying decisions are done by women in the world. So I would say these two areas.
Mm-hmm. There are so many of them. Is there more potential for investment being marketed as female founder?
I'm not sure if I understand the question.
Okay, let's get into another one.
One of you wants to take it.
Like, what is the main change needed to improve the flow of investments into female founders? If you could, like, let me rephrase this. If you could change one thing today, what would it be?
I think that's impossible to say because there's not one cause, right? Mm-hmm. It's a mix of all these sometimes small things, sometimes bigger things that come together and create a system that makes it so difficult for women to fundraise. And so I also think a solution needs to, or like coming up with a solution requires you to approach it holistically.
Yeah, I could come in on that. Even like, I suppose if it's just add what I feel where we're at in the journey in Ireland is that definitely I think the approach now of the early education is taking traction, and it'll be really interesting to see what's going to come out of that in terms of engaging with more STEM subjects and female participation in those subjects to be increased. And then in 5 years' time, what's going to be the fallout from that? We're going to see women moving away from maybe just doing the verticals that Zuzana mentioned into more deep tech, because what's deep tech? More risk. It goes to the point women aren't taking those risks as much as their male counterparts. So I think that's definitely in Ireland where we need to get to. We've kind of, exactly to the original point, is that it takes a village, it takes lots of stakeholders, it takes public, it takes private partnerships, it takes education, it takes mentorship, it takes government engagement at a reporting, mandating requirement. But then where we're at in Ireland is we need to kind of increase the traction at and the knowledge of this space and entrepreneurship as a career opportunity for females earlier in their career, earlier in their life.
And maybe if I can add, it's the most difficult, it's the mindset, or because when when you call like a female founders or Lumus, and and usually we heard, that's the female thingy, right? But it's not about female thingy, it's about to bring more diversity, and that's the main goal. And yes, currently we have to support women because they are underrepresented, but the main goal is to have a diversity among founders, among products, and so on. So I would say, like, even sometimes change the naming, because once there is something connected with women, there are so many biases and mindsets start to work on it. Just the female thingy.
Mm-hmm. We still have a lot of unanswered questions, but unfortunately our time is up. So I suggest you go and find Zuzana, Mairéad, and Elisabeth. And will you be at the after party?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you have so many chances to network and talk to these wonderful ladies. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today.